Picture this. You're starving, really starving. You've been chewing on raw grass seeds for weeks because that's all your tribe can find. Your stomach hurts. Your teeth are wearing down. And then, by pure accident, someone drops a handful of crushed seeds and water near a fire. What happens next changes the entire course of human civilization. Stay till the end, because the last part of this story will completely change how you think about something you eat almost every single day, and probably never once thought about. We're talking about bread. Yes, bread. That soft, fluffy, sometimes crusty thing you put butter on. It sounds boring, right? Wrong. Bread might be one of the most insane accidental discoveries in human history, and the story of how we invented it is way weirder than you'd ever guess. So let's go back. Way back, before cities, before farms, before anyone even knew what a meal was supposed to look like. Imagine you're a human living over 20,000 years ago. You don't have a fridge. You don't have a grocery store. You don't even have a house, really. You're wandering, following animals, following seasons, eating whatever you can find that won't kill you. Some days you eat meat, some days you eat berries. And some days, if you're unlucky, you eat nothing at all. Now here's where it gets interesting. All around you, growing wild in the fields, are grasses. Not the kind you'd want to eat, you'd think. Just wild grass with tiny little seeds on top. But your ancestors were desperate, clever, and honestly, a little bit brave. Because at some point someone looked at those seeds and thought, what if I just, try this? And they did. They started collecting these wild grass seeds, not because they tasted amazing, they didn't. Raw grass seeds are hard, dry, and honestly kind of miserable to eat. But they were food. And when you're starving, food is food. Here's the crazy part. Scientists have actually found proof of this. Deep in a cave in Jordan, archaeologists discovered burnt crumbs, tiny blackened pieces of something baked. And when they tested them, they realized these crumbs were 14,000 years old. Let that sink in for a second. Humans were baking bread-like food before they even understood how to grow the ingredients for it. So how does a handful of wild grass seeds turn into actual bread? This is where the story gets good. Imagine you're grinding these tough little seeds between two rocks, just trying to break them down enough to chew. It's exhausting work, your arms are sore. But eventually you get a rough, gritty powder, kind of like a very sad ancient flour. Now imagine adding a little water to that powder just to make it easier to eat, maybe to make a paste you can gulp down without breaking your teeth. And then imagine someone gets the idea to put that paste near the fire, maybe to warm it up, maybe just to see what happens. And what happens is magic. The paste hardens. It changes texture completely. It turns into something chewy, filling, and way easier to carry around than a handful of loose seeds. Something that doesn't spoil as fast. Something you can make in big batches and take with you on your next journey chasing herds of animals across the land. Congratulations! You've just invented the first flatbread in human history. No oven, no yeast, no recipe, just fire, seeds, water, and pure human trial and error. But here's the twist that makes this story even more mind-blowing. This wasn't just a lucky snack. This accidental invention may have quietly kickstarted one of the biggest transformations in human history: farming. Think about it like this. Once humans realized that grass seeds could be turned into food that fills your stomach and doesn't rot immediately, they had a reason to stick around one place longer. Instead of just wandering and hoping to stumble across more wild grass, some groups started protecting the patches of grass they found. Then they started scattering seeds on purpose. Then they started watching those seeds grow, season after season. That's farming. That's the beginning of agriculture. One of the biggest shifts humanity has ever gone through, arguably bigger than the invention of the wheel, may have started because someone wanted a better way to eat mushy grass seeds. Let that idea sit for a second. The desire for better bread might be one of the reasons humans stopped wandering and started building permanent homes. Villages, then towns, then cities, all potentially connected to people trying to solve the problem of turning grass into something edible. Now here's where the story gets even weirder. Because bread as we know it today, soft, fluffy, with air bubbles inside, didn't happen right away. For thousands of years, bread was flat, dense, and honestly kind of like a cracker. Humans were eating flatbread for an insanely long time before anyone figured out the next big secret. So what changed? Picture this scene. Somewhere in ancient Egypt, thousands of years after that first flatbread in the Jordanian cave, someone leaves a bowl of wet dough sitting out. Maybe they got distracted. Maybe they forgot about it. Whatever the reason, that dough just sits there in the warm air for a while. And something strange starts happening to it. It starts to bubble. It starts to grow. It starts to smell a little different. Almost sour. Almost alive. Here's the shocking truth. It was alive. Tiny microscopic organisms called wild yeast, floating invisibly in the air all around us all the time, had landed in that dough and started eating the sugars inside it. As they ate, they released tiny bubbles of gas, and those bubbles got trapped inside the dough, puffing it up like a balloon. Now imagine you're the ancient Egyptian who comes back to find your flat. Boring dough has transformed into this puffy, bubbly, weird-looking blob. Most people would probably throw it away, thinking it went bad. But somebody, some incredibly brave or incredibly hungry person, decided to bake it anyway. And what came out of that fire was something completely different from anything humans had eaten before. Soft, light, airy. The first leavened bread in human history, born from what was basically a kitchen mistake. This discovery was so massive that ancient Egyptians ended up treating bread almost like currency. Workers were literally paid in loaves of bread. Bread wasn't just food anymore. It became wealth, status, and survival, all wrapped into one. But it gets even crazier, because once people figured out that this magical bubbling process worked, they started saving a little bit of that bubbly dough to add into their next batch, and the next, and the next. This was basically the ancient version of sourdough starter, something home bakers still use today, thousands of years later. That means somewhere in your kitchen right now, if you make sourdough bread, the yeast culture you're using might be connected to a chain of fermentation going back thousands and thousands of years. You could be feeding descendants of the exact same wild yeast that ancient humans accidentally captured in a bowl of forgotten dough. Now here's a question. Why does this story even matter? Why should you care about some ancient humans grinding seeds and forgetting about dough? Because it says something incredible about how humans actually solve problems. We didn't invent bread because some genius sat down with a plan and a blueprint. We invented bread through hunger, desperation, curiosity, and a whole lot of lucky accidents. Someone was starving enough to try eating grass seeds. Someone was curious enough to see what happens when you heat wet seed paste. Someone was brave enough to bake dough that looked ruined instead of throwing it away. That's not just the story of bread. That's the story of almost every major human invention. Fire, tools, medicine, even language itself. So much of it started with someone in a desperate or curious moment willing to try something nobody had tried before. And here's the wild part. The part that should really blow your mind. Every single time you eat a sandwich, order a burger, or grab toast in the morning, you are tasting the end result of a 14,000-year-long chain of trial and error, accidents, hunger, and human stubbornness. That soft slice of bread sitting on your plate isn't just food. It's basically a time capsule connecting you directly to a starving human standing over a fire in a cave thousands of years before recorded history even existed. So the next time you take a bite of bread, maybe pause for just a second and think about that. Think about the person who first tried grinding grass into flour. Think about the person who almost threw away that bubbly, weird-looking dough. Think about how something so simple, something so easy to take for granted, actually represents one of humanity's greatest survival stories. Because that's really what this is all about. Humans didn't survive and thrive because we were the strongest or the fastest animals on the planet. We survived because we were relentlessly curious, endlessly willing to experiment, and somehow always able to turn even our biggest mistakes into our greatest discoveries. And honestly, that same spirit is still inside you right now. Every time you try something new, mess it up, and learn from it anyway, you're doing exactly what those ancient humans did around their fires thousands of years ago. So here's what you should walk away from this video knowing. Bread wasn't invented by accident alone, and it wasn't invented on purpose alone either. It was invented through thousands of years of humans refusing to give up, even when their food looked wrong, tasted strange, or seemed like a total failure. And if that doesn't make you look at a simple slice of bread a little differently, I don't know what will.